Good day to everyone at Insightful. I was just complying with your request to create a video of myself, introduction to myself and my background. So effectively, let's start with the latest first. That's the last thing I was doing first because I think it's going to be easier to work out that way. Okay, so I last worked for a company called WebEst, which is a provider of web-based software on an SaaS model, and it's used by auto repair shops to create a vehicle damage repair estimates. And this includes the way of sourcing parts, spare parts from various suppliers, either new or recycled, and the procedures you can use to repair shop the vehicles correctly. Let's say if you're changing an entire quarter panel, it would be the steps required to change a quarter panel, for example. The company used to use Salesforce to maintain customer records, Zendesk to process tickets, and this is all linked into the Office program. Our incoming calls are all handled by a thing called Ring Central Dialer, and the software was hosted on Network Solutions Cloud. So, some very good stuff there. Next, moving on to Worldview. That's one before WebEst, okay? And I left Worldview to join WebEst after a great offer. This company is in the hospitality sector, and they provided IT technical support primarily for chain hotels. People like I can't think of the name of it. Holiday Inns, for example, that kind of a chain. Also some independent hotels as well. Some of the smaller boutique hotels would also have this same software. So the scope of the job included providing support for network infrastructures for the properties, i.e. the hotel's actual backbone infrastructure for the network, and to either hotel managers or to the maintenance team to help them to sort out problems. In the case of the biggest change, then we would deal probably more likely with the IT group at the chain, and they would pass on someone to there, or they would get somebody in there that could do the job. Occasionally that meant sending in a third-party contractor, and we used to sort that out with them. We would organise that for them, set a date and time, and the guys would go in there. The secondary role was providing direct support to guests who wanted to connect their laptops or whatever to the hotel's Wi-Fi. And this included everything, basically, be it laptops, tablets, TV sticks, all kinds of stuff, even baby alarms, actually. So it was everything. The role used to include monitoring tools as well. So we would use, we had certain customers who had a VIA install, others who had Cisco Meraki, others that had our own solution, the Worldview solution. So there's a choice there between a VIA, Cisco Meraki and MikroTik effectively. Worldview had its own bespoke tool to manage the MikroTik routers. So that was our own internal backbone. Our team made wide use of tools like Wireshark, AnyDesk, and other popular applications for supporting customers. So that was, pretty much everything that you would use in any other company. Okay, prior to that, I worked at a company called BPO2B, which was actually, as the name suggests, a BPO. This is based in Ballinkia, so it was an on-site job. I was brought on as the IT manager for them, and I had 2 staff working for me. As with many call centres, this one had grown, grown like Topsy without any control, without any planning. So what it meant is that the system was frequently down for any number of reasons, and when you're dealing with a customer in the USA that has support requirements, it doesn't go very well. So we effectively, what we needed to do there was to improve the performance level of the system. Initially, what I did was to stabilize everything, put a UPS in place to cover any power outages, and also to, even though the building had a generator, as my manager managed to annoy the people who owned the building, they wouldn't switch it on for us until I went in there and we had a discussion and eventually managed to get them to persuade them to actually do it. So great, that was good. In terms of the configuration, effectively what I did was to used some spare equipment. They had some stuff in a cupboard which had been bought at the time of the installation and never been used, and there was a firewall in there and other MikroTik router stuff like that. So I made use of those to provide a firewall for both of the internet connections, which in this case were domestic at the beginning because that was what the cheapest. Obviously, when you're running a BPO like this or a call center, you can't run the cheapest because it can't be relied upon. So we actually got a commercial grade internet connection, which was fabulous. It didn't ever break down. But we kept one of the other two as a backup, just in case there was some kind of major issue. Okay. After a while of actually getting that sorted out, the management decided to move buildings, as they'd had this ongoing war with the buildings administrators. They had to move somewhere else. So I basically was tasked with creating a new design, a new network. The new building, what it had effectively was an existing Cat6A cabling plant and a rather tired old UPS. It did need new batteries. So we did that. We changed the batteries out on the UPS and we restored some of the Cat6A connections, meaning that we now had a full system. So everything else I actually designed this from the ground up. So everything apart from the Cat6A cabling and the UPS, I specified it, installed it, got it working. Obviously, I had my two staff members working with me, so I wasn't doing it on my own, at least. But one guy was mostly focused on desktops. And when you've got 75, 80 seats in a call centre, desktops becomes a very important part of it. But the other guy and I managed to do most of the other work on that. So the installation worked from day one and very likely still performing well. Not too sure. They moved on. They closed out their building, moved on, so I don't know. We used a number of open source tools there as well. They had nothing. I used pfSense as a firewall because there was no budget for a firewall, and that was the best way of doing it. Use some old equipment, put on a firewall, and away you go. Also, we had a couple of MikroTik routers that were going spare, so I put one on each of the connections. And we deployed things like OpenEMS to monitor the entire system, so that we had at least some idea what was going on within the system. And it's especially useful when you've got routers and you're getting attacked from outside. It does underscore where the attack's coming from and what they're using to attack you with. So that was very useful, let's say. Right. Now, prior to that, I've been working in the BPO sector for about 3 years, and I've been working both on customer and technical support, principally for a prepaid cellular communications company in the USA. And he'll be really focused on, friendly customer support, being available, quick turnarounds. There was the saying that RFT, right first time. So that was the intention: take the call, get the right solution, get it dealt with. We also learned about active listening in this and PCI compliance, i.e. payment cards and stuff like that, how to handle those. And they used Amazon Web Spaces, TCN's dial-up platform, Avaya's voice over IP network, Mattermost collaboration, and Office 360. So we worked with all those tools. Before that, I was working in IT consulting. Long story short, I was working for a big company and they pulled out of Colombia. It was a bad time, and the only job I could do was to go back to some of my existing customers and say, hey, do you need me to help you with something? So amongst those initial calls was an invitation to work on an IT project for the armed forces in Colombia, and for some governments to customers as well. The primary project here was a resilient, secure comms network for the military. So here we used 3 different comms methods. We effectively used the existing fiber networks using VPNs. And that worked for most traffic. I mean, it's already what the insurgents there. They could stop the traffic and they could examine it, but they couldn't decipher it. So there wasn't much danger of that ever falling into their hands. If they attacked the infrastructure, then we had the backup of a microwave network and a satellite network. So we were always good with that. In terms of other projects, I also collaborated with some other guys on what's called the VTMS, or Vessel Traffic Management System Center. And this is for a port, and the port basically has a dog leg in the axis. So we used radar to cover the dog leg, or both sides of the dog leg, and AIS, which is the standard way of tracking vessels and gives information about their heading, speed, what sort of ship they are, etc. So that's very useful. Included in that was marine band radio, radar, signalling, navigation aids, those being either the physical buoys or the virtual buoys that you can generate using AIS. And all this was overlaid on displays in the VTMS Centre, showing the guys in the centre exactly what's going on in the channel coming up to the port. I then moved on to something. Well, before that, I used to work in channel sales, and that was for a very large company, Fortune 50 company, where they gave me a sales objective of $1 million a month. And I managed to actually get the $1 million a month and go over, in fact. So I did pretty well at that. Also, before that, I'd been working for a manufacturer of networking equipment, and I'd done stuff such as pre-sales, engineering. I did also design, and prior to that, doing post-sales engineering, i.e. when the stuff's installed, look after it. Also I also got involved in IT management and technical training, so I used to train people. So that covers, I think, just about everything I've done, which is of interest to you guys. Right, the question is then, what's the most challenging technical problem you've ever had to solve at a previous job? So the question, what was the problem? Well, let me tell you, an important customer of mine in the education sector was experiencing frequent network outages. Now, they were new to me because they'd been handed over to me by another office. So so that was the problem that we had to deal with. Okay, the first task, initially I went on a goodwill visit to the customer. However, as soon as I arrived in his office, the guy pinned me against the wall and began giving me the real lowdown on what he thought of the system, which was, he wasn't very happy with it, to be honest. He had trouble with it, it was unstable, and things were happening which shouldn't be happening, so that's effectively what he was upset about. So he threatened to sue the company, and he was for breach of contract and to return the equipment. Well, obviously we weren't going to let that happen because they'd come from the USA, so it's unlikely. So what did I do to resolve this? In any case like this, it's important to let the customer vent. So I let the guy vent for as long as he wanted to. And I made notes of everything he was experiencing. Every thing he mentioned, I made a note of it. Now, when they'd been sold this solution, maybe 6 or 8 months beforehand, it was still, I would guess, in the development stage. It hadn't really been concreted 100%. So our sales team went over the top a little bit with that when they sold it to him, because they shouldn't have sold him what they sold him. Nevertheless, the stuff is there, so we're going to fix it. So my first task was to set some expectations with the guy and let him know that, I'm going to give me 3 weeks to sort this problem out, and I promise you it'll be working 100%. And I got the spiel about, experts from other ends have been here, they've tried and failed to fix the issue. Why do you think you can do it? Well, I knew I could do it because I'd already been to the factory and I'd been talking to the guys that ran a particular product line. So I knew something was coming out that was going to fix this guy's issues. But I knew I had some time to before it came out. So I said to the guy, give me the 3 weeks. Let me help you sort it out. So he finally agreed. After a lot of whinging and whining, he agreed. And on the first week I went back there, I did some upgrades to the switches on the floors. There was the model I had. There was an issue with that particular switch, so I went around, fixed that problem. That I probably made about a 25-30% difference in the stability. So things began to get a bit more stable. On week 2, I went on a on a Thursday. Went in there, talked to the guy, did some preparation work. And on Friday, after the university closed, I basically spent most of Friday night updating the switch's firmware. So that was going through every leaf of the switch and updating the latest version of the firmware, making sure it worked, making sure the configuration carried over, and the configuration was correct, in fact, as well. So there was that as well. So I did that, and that seemed to work very well because the system became quite stable after that. And there was just, on the final week, I only went back just to do some minor adjustments. Okay, so after that, I mean, what was the result? Okay, on the last day of my visit, the customer called me into his office. I thought, God, he's going to give me a real rollicking again. But no, he sat me down and he apologised. He said, look, I'm really sorry for giving you a hard time, for lambasting you, etc., because I was under pressure. Okay, that's fine. And he explained that, he'd been under pressure of losing his job because of the situation with the system. And he'd become, if you like, desperate. He didn't believe it could be solved. He thought he was going to be out of work. He thought he'd be looking for a job. But my intervention meant that he kept his job, and he never forgot that. So what it boiled down to was every time there was anything new to be done there, any new building added or any upgrades, he would call me and I would get that sorted out for him. So what was an initially an antagonistic relationship turned out to be a friendship at the end of the day. So that was the result of it, and that's the one I can mention today. Okay, next thing is one working collaboratively with others to resolve a customer issue. Well, okay. The issue in this case was an armed forces project, the one I mentioned before actually. Why? Because it was not purely network infrastructure, it included a bunch of other stuff. So in this case it was telephony and building automation. Well, I didn't have much idea about telephony and not about building automation. So my role was to basically put together what I call the dream team, a bunch of guys and girls that knew about these different elements and could deliver on the promise that we were giving the customer. That was building automation, a reliable system, and a way for them to trace their or to track their bad guys on the system, the insurgents, and keep a track on them. So my contribution boiled down to the fact that I designed the net backbone network. Did that. So it was an 8-story building from zero. So I just basically had the wiring conduits, used those, designed all the floor switches, central floor switches, all that. We had a center, an IT operations room on the 3rd floor, where the servers were and where the main switch was and everything else. Everything folded back into that 3rd floor. Next up, I was also responsible for administering the team. So whatever their inputs were, I would take them on board and produce the results for that. So at the end of the day, what did we do? So we put together some tender documents, because this was a public tender. It had to go to public tender because it's government. And we put together the tender documents, and once they'd been published and we had some respondents, we basically then had a Q&A to explain the design's nuances, which was myself and the other guys as well, answering questions about what we were thinking of the design, basically. So that went very well. Once the project had been released, we had about 5 participants. There was one clear winner based on their evaluation of them, how close they came to the brief, and effectively that was great. We had one clear winner, and the project went through. It was unusual because most projects in the government sector went out, didn't ever get resolved. They were, if you like, there were so many objections that no clear winner could be found, and they ended up by not getting a respondent. They just had to abandon the project. Okay, so the result, I say, in that case was a customer got a tool to allow him to fight the insurgents, and they could track persons of interest quite clearly through information received from 7 different bases and various agents in the field. So it was very good. As far as I know, it's still being used today. And even though the insurgents were able to blow up the fibre networks, and they manage to knock down a couple of the microwave towers, they could not interrupt the communication simply because it was also running on satellite links, and they couldn't bring the satellites down. So that was probably the best thing that I did. And I think that's enough for now. I hope you found it interesting.